Putin is a tough guy. You think bodyguards protect him? No, he protects the bodyguards. Aside from his daily manly activities, he spends a lot of time concentrating on one thing: geography. Apparently, people find Russia's relations with the world quite hard to grasp. I mean, is he a friend or an enemy? Russia's in bed with authoritative governments and at times flirts with democratic countries. What if I told you? Russia's stance is quite transparent. Everything, including their stance and strategy, was written on a map all along, in plain sight.
They were sworn to stand together against them.
I hope that no one will think of crossing a red line with Russia.
This will be a comprehensive video, so after you're done, you will have a pretty good idea on how Putin plays this global chessboard and why he does what he does. If this video helped you, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification button. Alright, let's travel to Mother Russia.
The Soviet Union is an immense landmass.
Russia is massive. I mean, it's the biggest country in the world. It stretches across 11 time zones. Some of them look like this, and some this. And these are all faces of Russians. So, you have this massive chessboard. How exactly do you defend it? Well, to put simply, all Russian leaders from past to present, they're seeking two things: mountains and waters. It's not just a nice view. Mountains are essential to national security. They are a country's natural defense. See, when you invade a country, it's usually not a good idea to march across mountains. I mean, you could, but if you're about to fight someone, would you go, oh, let's run a marathon for warm-up? You'd be dead tired, let alone the incredibly long supply line. That's why mountains are so important. So you're Putin. The first thing you say when you look at the map, show me the mountains. To the east of Moscow, there's a mountain range, Ural Mountains. Putin's like, nice, it's a snow mountain. It's perfect for defense, it shields the capital. Oh, hold on a second. There's a huge gap here. There's a lot of plains. What's wrong with plains? Well, everything. As a student of history, Putin knew exactly what it could mean. It's like open season for any armies with a few horses and weapons. In fact, 800 years ago, there were a bunch of savages who shot bows from horsebacks at unreal accuracy. They were the Mongols. They were expanding their empire, and the ancestors of Russians were no match at all. They had been conquered and occupied under harsh rule by the Mongols for 2 centuries, all because of this freaking weak spot. After some time, the Mongol Empire collapsed. The locals moved to modern Moscow. The first Tsar declared, well, let's not let this happen again, shall we? From now on, the best defense is offense. Go find me a mountain. This had become the de facto policy for all future Russian leaders. They would push eastward into Asia, way past Siberia, beyond the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, Russia actually had territory in America, but they later sold it to the US. We call it Alaska. Yeah, the Tsar really missed out on the good stuff.
Alaskan king crab. It is the Rolls Royce.
Now we know how Russia became the biggest country. You could say it's because of paranoia, but is it really paranoia?
Most of Russia proper is a flat land that extends to unbroken horizons in all directions.
Putin's point of view. In the east, the ocean provides solid protection. What about the north? No one is yet crazy enough to attack from the Arctic Ocean. What if they took the path of the Mongols? Now that Russia's territory is so big, it wouldn't make much sense to attack from afar. But there's still a weak link. On the west, the northern European plains. All plains super wide. This is the underlying reason for most conflicts between Russia and Western nations we see today. You might be thinking, come on, it's 21st century, war's behind us, stop overreacting, just have a glass of vodka and chill. But that's not what the Russian bear has in mind. It's easy for you to say. Of course it'd be good to lay down our weapons, hold our hands and sing kumbaya. In case you haven't noticed, we are not living in a perfect world. Do you realize in the past 500 years how many times we had been at war? Too many. We've got the Polish in 1605, Swedes in 1708. In fact, starting from Napoleon and ending at the 2 world wars, we had been at war once in every 33 years in the northern European plains, so don't tell me to relax. There were some close calls. Back in the days, Napoleon led the French army into Moscow. But the supply line was ridiculously long. Also, the weather certainly didn't help. They were starving and freezing. It was so close, they almost had it, but they had to turn around. The same mistake was repeated by Hitler during World War II.
They told the world they would get to Moscow, and now they've got there. Over 57,000 German soldiers captured by the Red Army in one campaign in White Russia.
Again, it's too far away from home, and it's minus 30 degrees. For this reason, if Russians want natural protection on the west, say an ocean, they had to defeat Germany, France. I mean, it's too far, aka long supply line, not to mention the Brits won't just stand there. Therefore, the next best thing would mean Ukraine and Poland. Because of this, Carpathian Mountains. The Soviets had it once, but after their fall, these states became independent. Russians no longer call a shot. You can only hope to manage this buffer zone.
This union of 12 nations became known as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or more simply, NATO.
This would be a headache for Putin. There are currently two big cockblockers. NATO was formed to counter Soviet aggression. Now the target is on Russia's back. The US calls a shot, whereas the European Union was formed by different European countries. The Germans call a shot. Put simply, one is for trade, one focuses on military. Putin disliked the EU, but NATO was the true threat. Let's get to the point of this video. Who are the friends? Who are the enemies? Well, let's see. This was the Soviet era. Reds were pro-Russians, blues were pro-Western. What about today? Well, now you know what keeps Putin up at night. NATO has creeped up to their doorstep. Their game of Tetris are full of gaps.
You would go to war with Russia.
NATO is committed to defending its allies.
Ukraine is the last buffer. It's a red line. Ukraine almost joined the EU in 2014. In Putin's eyes, EU is like a gateway to NATO. Ukraine joining NATO? They can't have that. They had little choice but to invade.
The Russian military now being directly involved in fighting Ukrainian government forces.
Satellite imagery show Russian combat units in eastern Ukraine.
Time out. Look, I'm not trying to justify his act. I'm merely explaining why he did what he did, according to his strategy. While Russia isn't totally helpless, think for a moment. What's their best weapon right now? Nuclear bomb? The army? No. Energy.
Why is Europe so dependent on Russian gas?
Let's fly to the most valuable region in Russia, Siberia. It's mostly uninhabitable, it's so cold, but it also has a lot of natural resources. Most of Europe rely on it. For example, these countries, they're 100% reliant on Russian natural gas. Russians basically set the price for their monthly electricity bill. The closer the relationship, the better the deal. So if you insist on being a pain in the ass, Russia can literally cut you off. Enjoy the winter without heat, guys. Yeah, of course, this is only the last resort. Russia's economy relies on the sale of natural gas. They need each other. Even Germany, the leader of EU, relies on Russia for over 50% of their gas import. It gives Russia a lot of leverage on global affairs. That's why when Russia invaded Ukraine, they only responded with limited sanction. They can't afford to cut ties.
Russia can now effectively weaponize the pipeline by cutting off supplies.
Well, enter the Americans. Hey, fellow Europeans, fancy some natural gas? We've got some extra ones. Putin was like, what the hell, dude? You live across an ocean. Why are you flirting with my customers? Let's recap. Russians and the Western Europeans are both friends and enemies at the same time. Militarily, they hate each other. Economically, if the price is right, they can pretend to be friends. All in all, looking west is a vast region. It'd be in their interest to further extend their regional influence. It would be beneficial, but it's also not too big of a deal at the moment. Alright, eastward, the only superpower bordering Russia is China. Considering the harsh weather and an unrealistic supply line, with no strong nationalistic, religious, or ideological conflicts, it's more likely they cooperate economically rather than fighting each other. Basic precaution is good enough. Finally, the south. They got the good stuff, Caucasus Mountains. But they're still dreaming southward. Why? Because a Russian politician once said, one day the Russian soldiers will wash their boots in the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. Russia doesn't lack natural resources. What they lack is warm water. For geographical reasons, their ports are frozen 3 to 4 months a year. That's why, aside from mountain range, they also needed warm water ports. Here comes another moment of truth. Why did they annex Crimea after attacking Ukraine? For this, Sevastopol port, Russia's only major warm water port, aka the control of Black Sea. Why did Putin get in bed with the Assad regime? Because of this port in Tartus, control of the Mediterranean Sea. Why did Russia befriend Iran? For the same reason, warm water ports, the control of Arabian Sea. Are you seeing the dots connect? Black Sea, Caspian Sea, Arabian Sea, Mediterranean Sea are all crucial to Russia's national security and economic well-being. To lose any of these is to expose their vulnerability to the West. If we eliminate all the borders and look at the world from Moscow's perspective, the situation hasn't changed much since the first Tsar. What he faced was more or less the same as Putin. Technology might have introduced minor changes, but the basic rules are still there. Mountains and waters are still important. Therefore, when Russia befriends you, it's not because you're authoritative or that you have common ideology. It's always about common interests, because you're the enemy of an enemy. This applies to all countries. Ideologies can be betrayed. The only thing that is unbetrayable is self-interest. This is in our DNA. But you can always align your interests with what works best for the world. I mean, having a clear conscience could also be considered as self-interest. It's what you value. Look, I'm not a determinist. I don't think geography determines our fate, but it definitely played a huge role, which is often overlooked in my opinion. It pretty much shaped our options. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe to this channel, hit the notification button, like, share, and comment so that I know I'm making the right content. If you'd like me to cover other continents and countries in the world, do leave a comment. One last thing. If radicalism is the new normal, let's be radically objective. See you next time.